So he says, your descendants will be as numerous as the sands on the, I forget, beach or ocean or whatever. The point being, I'm going to bless you and all your descendants. So there's talk of descendants, but he's not going to, his covenant does not, and promise does not reach to all of Abraham's descendants. It's given to the descendants through his son Isaac. Abraham has at least two sons. Later he might have had more, but his first son was Ishmael. But that wasn't the son that God had in mind, and that son came through Sarah, through his concubine, Abraham's concubine, Hagar. But through God, when he made this promise, he had intended to bless Abraham's descendants who came through Sarah, and he promised that he and Sarah would have a child. They were old at the time, and when God told Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have a child, they thought, yeah, kind of old. There was an issue with their response to that, particularly Sarah's, but so they started getting a little antsy, and then Sarah says, well, maybe you should lie down with my maiden Hagar and have a son that way. And he did. And he had a son Ishmael. And those are his descendants, but those aren't the descendants of Abraham that God said he would bless. He blessed the children of, and this is something that's explained by Paul later, God blessed the descendants of Abraham who came through the child of the promise, who was Isaac. God promised Abraham Isaac through Sarah. So when Sarah was 90, they bore Isaac. And then not all of Isaac's children. Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Well, he didn't bless all the descendants of Esau. He blessed the descendants of Abraham who came through Isaac and then through Jacob, who later was renamed Israel, which means he struggles with God, and that was after Jacob had this struggle with an angel of the Lord, it was probably Jesus, and he was renamed Israel, and he struggles with God. Anyway, so the blessing came through Abraham, but not through all his descendants, through the descendant of the promise, who was Isaac, and then through Jacob. So there's this period of time after that covenant, and where God is, where the Jewish nation is formed. The patriarchs that the Jewish religion talks about, the 12 patriarchs, are the sons of Jacob. So Jacob has 12 sons, not to mention a daughter, and he has them through 2 different wives and concubines. But those are the 12 patriarchs. And so that's the Jewish nation. So that period of time lasts for a while. Joseph comes along, and his brothers sell him, and he ends up in Egypt. And he becomes the second in command of Pharaoh, and I can't go through that whole story, but so he eventually brings his father and his brothers to Egypt, and so there's this period of time in Egypt, which is one of the most significant periods in the Bible, metaphorically, if not actual historically, because it's a period of slavery. And the whole story of Exodus is a story of God freeing his people from slavery, which is what God does for his people. And the covenant with Abraham was that he would bless his descendants. And what we later find in the New Testament is that what Jesus says, I can make a descendant of Abraham out of this rock. It's not a matter of flesh and blood, it's a matter of faith. You don't have faith, and you're not a descendant of Abraham. And Jesus goes on and talks about branches being cut off from the vine, and other branches being grafted onto the vine. So anyway, there's this period of between Abraham and Moses coming along. And when Moses came along 400 years later after Abraham, he listens to God. God tells him to go tell Pharaoh to set my people free. and you know about the plagues and everything. And so eventually the Israelites get released, and they go through the Red Sea, and the Red Sea eats up all the people from Pharaoh who decide to go chase after the Israelites. And so Moses leads people into the desert. They are in the desert for many years, but during that period of time, God calls Moses up to Mount Sinai and delivers the law. And so that's a new period. Now they have the law from God written on tablets, and then it's preserved in the Ark of the Covenant. So there's this period of time when they're under that covenant and the law. And so that's a significant time period where God says you have to do certain things, and if you don't do those things exactly right, then there has to be sacrifice.